There is a myth in Western culture about the origin of sculpture as art form. It begins like this. A potter's daughter is in love. The man she loves is heading off to war. As the story goes, she sees a shadow on the wall. She traces it. The shape is then molded into clay, the first sculpture. This desire to trace a shadow, to mark what is here, to make a space for and around loss, this is the impetus for this particular Wordo. Today, I'm going to trace a mountain range. About a month ago, I was at work. I had just finished baking and wrapping pastries for the Sunday farmers market. The before sunrise rush of baking was done. Everything had slowed to the pace of daydream. I was daydreaming out loud to the person across from me. I must have said something like this. There's an old fire lookout on top of a mountain. It's about 4 hours north of here. In the summers, the trail is easy to find. There are alpine meadows of wildflowers, fireweed, columbine, hellebore. You climb up and up and up over a field of boulders until you reach a little white house. Inside, there are windows on all 4 walls, and in every direction there are mountains, snow-covered. Being there feels like sitting in a cloud above the world. And if you're the first to arrive that day, you get to sleep there. An hour after speaking these words aloud, half the bakery had requested time off. 2 weeks later, the same group of bakers was again up before sunrise, this time driving across Highway 20. There was a collective excitement about the prospect of sleeping in the tower, of seeing this beautiful place I had described. I didn't anticipate what came next. The place was almost unrecognizable to me. Dead flowers, a vista made gray by a nearby forest fire. We complained of headaches. We worried about finding water. I found myself wanting to say something meaningful, but the words that arrived felt inadequate. It didn't used to be like this. It didn't used to be like this. In a period marked by a changing climate, there is a collective awareness of living in 2 bodies. This, according to Daisy Hildyard. There is the first body that goes about its day, doing what bodies do. Then there's a second body, one that Elvia Wilk refers to as the ecosystemic body. This second body is implicated in and influenced by the first body. It is a season that is unseasonably warm or cold, a patch of land covered by a rising sea, a trail through the mountains that feels of another place. Perhaps at the most fundamental level, the ecosystemic body is an awareness of interbeing, made visible by a changing landscape. In conversations about this time of mass extinction, there is inevitably the question, what is the use of art in a time like this? Inevitably, someone says something about its futility. I am not one of those people. Neither is the poet Chris Abani. He has written that whatever drove the potter's daughter to trace her lover's outline is the same impulse we see repeated throughout time and culture and place. The need to remember, he writes, to create or recreate a body out of loss, but also against loss and against forgetting, is what drives the artist. It can be argued that the creative process is a ritual of remembrance. Yes, it feels strange to exist in the space-time of slow unfolding apocalypse. It might be said that the primary characteristic of this time is suffering, is loss. What we make of and against these ongoing losses will be the mark of our time. This is my belief. By the way, the group of us hiking that day got the lookout tower. Inside this little house on top of the mountain, there is a bed. Under the bed, there is a notebook. The first address you'll hear tonight is from this notebook.
Hi, Aaron. Here's that recording that you asked for, that we found in the fire watch on top of the Hidden Lake Peak when we took that grand hike together. It's titled A Love Letter to the Anthropocene. We who stand and gaze upon these mountains carry an obligation. We who are living through the Anthropocene, climate crisis, and the sixth largest mass extinction must carry the responsibility of grieving. I am convinced that life is the ability to hold ever-expanding joy and ever-expanding grief. Who but ourselves will bear witness and mourn and celebrate the beauty, the terror, the magic, the catastrophe? The death toll rises, and we must sing louder. We must sing and dance and worship at the altar of destruction, which is also creation. There is no other way but complete embrace. Wear our grief like a badge on our chest, a scar of survival. These threads are ours to unweave. Let it transform you. Be awake for every moment. You are your ancestors' prayer. Through fire and flood, remain in love with this earth and her dying pangs. Bear witness, do not look away. Remember to grieve and know that grief is like the weather. It will come and go. Allow it all. You will find me crying and singing on mountain peaks, in awe, in wonder, in gratitude, in love.
I am my home in this dystopian reality of summer smoke seasons and mass shootings, of droughts and water wars. I light candles and draw myself hot baths. I soak in Epsom salt and let it all sink in. I watch the Twitter feuds and politicians on the news, tired of feuding with my own body as it changes shape, like the mountains and volcanoes and glaciers. As humanity attacks the earth and each other, my body attacks itself, out of misguided and ill-informed protectiveness, mistaking itself for malicious intruders. I inject myself with healing poison to appease it. I taught myself to make art with needles. I poke myself with poison and ink now. Both are healing, and make permanent marks on my impermanent body. Most days, I carry a rock in my pocket. I borrowed it from the beach that day I dipped my toes in the Sound, because it all feels like too much. When looking at the world consumes me with dread, and the impending existential threats weigh me down until I'm pinned beneath them, immobile, and the geographic range shifts beneath me, I shift my weight beneath me on my skateboard, preparing to fall. Falling is part of it. I collect scrapes and scars and tattoos as I move through the Anthropocene. My body is my only permanent address here.
A certain kind of person goes to the movies alone. In the late 1970s, Edward Yang was living in Seattle and working as a software engineer. Bored by his work, he frequently unwound by seeing films at the Harvard exit, now defunct independent theater in Capitol Hill. One evening, which I can only imagine as being dreary and forlorn, he saw a second run of Werner Herzog's Aguirre, The Wrath of God. I doubt it was a packed house. But something about sitting alone in the dark, the rain drizzling on the roof, watching a film about man's futile attempts to wrestle meaning out of a silent, uncaring world, stirred something in Yang. He later said the experience of seeing that film changed the trajectory of his life. Soon he would leave Seattle and return to his hometown, Taipei, intent on becoming a director. And no director distills the subtle cocktail of loneliness, isolation, and malaise brewing in the urban environment quite like Yang. Prevented by the city from communicating with others or even knowing themselves, his characters live out their own private dramas and find refuge in nostalgia. His 1985 film, Taipei Story, is about a couple whose relationship is disintegrating against the backdrop of their city's rapid modernization. Chin works for an architectural firm, being bought out and subsequently gutted by a multinational corporation. Lung is nominally a fabric salesman, but spends most of his time watching Little League games and gambling in karaoke bars. The pair hangs their hopes on moving to America, where Lung will partner with his brother-in-law at an import-export firm. But he wears his doubt and reluctance on his sleeve. When asked by his former Little League coach, what was Los Angeles like, Lung replies, a lot like Taipei. The film opens with Chin leasing a modern apartment that she hopes to fill with a life, but it's a life that never really begins. Her attempts to communicate with Lung are met by either the stone wall of his depression or the beep of his answering machine. Her sole confidant is Kay, an architect who sulks around his decaying firm like Hamlet through the halls of Elsinore, lamenting that something is rotten in the state of Taiwan. Whether or not I'm involved seems less and less important, says Kay, drearily gazing across a skyline he helped design, but could be anywhere in the world. Chin suggests they talk about something else. At a late-night noodle stall, she probes Kay about his wife. She wants assurance that the domesticity she craves from Lung will cure her. But Kay doesn't have much to say and looks despondently into his bowl. Laid off after her firm's buyout, Chin begins to spend more time with her younger sister, drifting from between parties and nightclubs on mopeds, draped in a haze of smoke and American pop music. Meanwhile, Lung is too obsessed with the past to confide in anyone. Like a moth to the flame, he can't resist the things that once made him happy. Chin gets in late from her outing with Kay, hoping it might elicit jealousy, or maybe just worry from Lung. But instead, with perhaps the most hopeless face I've seen in film, he pats her shoulder and watches a baseball game he taped in America. Lung sticks to the old neighborhood, lingering around ball fields and offering unsolicited advice to the next generation of players. He seems to consciously avoid the areas of Taipei that have been renewed, preferring smoky, dimly lit Mandopop karaoke bars, now water-stained and crumbling. His brief foray into the modern city to have a drink with Chin's yuppie friends ends in a brawl set to Michael Jackson's Baby Be Mine. Increasingly, violence becomes his primary means of emotionally responding to the world. As you might guess, the film doesn't end on a high note. Inertia and the depression that accompanies it prevent Chin and Lung from taking the next steps in their relationship. The last shot is of Chin turning out the lights as she vacates her apartment, a place that her and Lung never truly shared a life in.
The rule of the land is impermanence. Let us rejoice. For the work of our hands, as the beaver's dam, will collapse. And earth will transfigure, as she always has, needing no person to testify of her glory. The rule of the land is impermanence. Let us rejoice. For the work of our hands, as the beaver's dam, will collapse. And earth will transfigure, as she always has, needing no person to testify of her glory.
Continue to change and shift. 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 To change and shift. Continue to change and shift.
He gave you a little smirky smile.
Right now, my role is to be the mother of that woman over there and the grandmother of this beautiful young woman standing across from me asking me questions. Mwah.
Oh, games. To encourage young people not to be worried about getting older. We found that the last 5 years since we turned 90 have been very enjoyable and have dimensions that we could not have anticipated. And we want younger people to look forward with optimism to when they achieve the same place in the world. Specifically, one of the big good surprises was to discover that we have a reservoir of memories that we thought had been lost. But sometimes a word comes up and it stimulates recollection of something that happened 40 or 50 or 60 years ago. And the fact that we have a vocabulary in common, we met when we were teenagers, increases the possibility that we could remind each other of these memories that were dormant for so long.
This is the uphill side. Then we get to go downhill. I said I'm delighted to be here in this place with all these wonderful connections with our dear ones, and having a beautiful view from our windows, and being reasonably healthy and in good spirits.
Yep, and now your face.
So we do a lot of time traveling. We go back to when we were other people, but we're still the same people.
It's great luck that my darling Maurice and I have to have this wonderful family, and so close by. Anytime we want to, we can just have a short walk and see each other. Great. Nothing could be better.
Of course, you have to have company. You can make the trip alone, but it's much more fun when somebody else can add combined recollections.
And I also happen to have a marvelous partner. There's nobody. Is he listening? Nobody better in the world than your grandfather. He's the very top, the very best. Yep. So we're happy. We're lucky. Very, very lucky. And we're thankful for this great luck, this wonderful connection and closeness that we have here. It's just great. Couldn't ask for anything better.
Beautiful day.
Yes. Every day is beautiful, but some are easier to recognize.
Here's my address in the Anthropocene. It's called A New Golden Spike. Epigraph: what might be the marker for the golden spike at the end of the Anthropocene? That's from earthlearningidea.com. You'll find this pressed against the first Marvel comics and perhaps a thin blanket of satellite grit, my loose leaf, marked up in number 2 lead, ready for delivery through the larynx of one long dead. But let's have you give it a breathe. Go on. Pull your team together and brush off the symbols, a bit quaint but no harder than Hamlet in a Gen Xer's ear. And that about says it. My question for you, with its radiocarbon copyright circa 2022. Has the curse come unraveled? You know what's gotten stirred with gunpowder and spread on the wind with rocketry, vision, space laser platforms, and smart little drones, all at the hands of the same kind of man again, the fellow who owns and has hungry handlers. I'm thinking now of a certain Musk. Does your record show how a new golden spike at hyperlight sped down from a worried future aimed right for his head in its tower and through him to rend the knotty web silk of his time? Did it end there or not? And since then, have there been many more such men? The air cookers, gun funders, big boy-faced fate benders who like to lash the whole race, who render the rest of us their tethered elephant. I'm back here wishing it all could sputter and cool. I saw thousands freeing themselves from one shaky, twittering temple in one day, so I've scribed with my pencil.
Brian, I write to look over your shoulder and feel untraceable sparks leap from a chrysalis of dreamworks lost in a sea of flames. Even if these gestures come undone, a few thousand years would be less than to be rid of them. Only by a portal can you go through. So how do you care for the improbable? Even an orgy of death before an abyss will not end transmission. Monster of oneself and one's witness, to sense perception in all apparent senses on itself does not turn. Genes will never build dawn. Stars still stay stars still. Enclosed here are undisclosed artifacts, yet even if they were ours, illusions would defer. Leave wide, my friend, what you leave open. Together we've been alone no longer. If you are in the know, thrive on the margins. Not inhuman, I address you from arcades beneath the stone swirl of storm clouds. Please write, heal me in turn with the rust of clocks and crossed out. But if you so choose to reproduce this document, I appeal for you to also to document its annihilation, to archive the unoriginated. Just as this letter is blue, time machines need not run on desire. May joy guide you through grief, compassion past passion, kindness out of the cold equally. Ian. P.S. Hestia nears the prone body of Hermes, fragments of a nude no different than her cautious touch.
Cher Ian, salutations. Things as they were changed upon receipt of your blue letter, finding me as it did at shut of day. Doors clanging closed, blinds turned down to hoard the window's light. All life is a punctuation of the noble silence. I yell myself. And speaking is one blip or bleep, or sometimes bloop, to another. It seems both polite and protective to retreat now and again into a fictive fiefdom where I am sovereign, unbeholden, and unbeheld. Claudia Rankine said, Judith Butler said, our very being exposes us to the address of another. We suffer from the condition of being addressable. Our emotional openness is carried by our addressability. Language navigates this. We might also say that letters navigate this. Nonetheless, I, like most, crave sweet address and creep outside each night to check for mail. Strange portal, that deep dark box with its door like a drawbridge sans portcullis. For better and for worse, it's a two-way street, a right and left-hand path connecting me to you, to the city, the county, the country, to the notion of a future and a past, to God and Satan, the sublime and the profane, my debtors and my creditors, my family and my long-lost loves. What are we to make of doors and gates which insist on confronting us with their new old lies about separateness, separability? I look askance at doors ajar. Their ability to close bellies the vulnerability admitted by their very presence, sewn into their design. I fantasize of a white picket fence with a gateless gate and a crackling civic hearth to mirror my own. Leave wide what you leave open, a wise man once said. Flew open wide, my furtive fuel smokes, takes flight, melds in midair with the nocturnal emissions of a million chimneys. The night is alight. Later, skater, Brian.
Dear Brian, upon receiving your signless envelope containing your letter addressing me, I removed its contents, the plastic pickle, the headless duck, the torn image with the label, The History of Rise and Fall, along with the letterhead enclosing your letter, and paused, for only after some days' time did I read it from beginning to end, touched by the struggle of no final resting place, like the emptiness of the memo unwritten in the paper you sent, or the nocturnal illumination of the sentence you have written to me about all life. About the separate, I search vainly for some relevant citation, whether the selves left unanswered or unsaid, or at the viewing deck closest at terminal consignment, where I once wondered what I had taken from the other I moved home to be and am again. And I think of Sarah Ahmed, whose book may be resting in the front seat of that orange vehicle, or a compartment of that long train. How solidarity involves commitment and work, as well as the recognition that even if we do not have the same feelings or the same bodies, we do live on common ground. But where in the groundless and the real estate market can we find such a commons? And how will you and I take part in the design of the buildings of this our chosen perishing? What material will this present meaninglessness be to live in when the storm a second time hits? I too feel confined by self-imposed quiet, by unfalsifiable hope. Burdened by the pain of yourself, you did not let others in. Taken by their own pain, how did they invite you to give away that distance? A bump on your back and the disco ball casts stars over the crowd, noisome with the flame of nearness. Something other than creation comes into play. With the fact of each extinction you try to capture truth with fugitive beauty, and while you learn to count with your hands and feet, numbers flood every which way with their shimmering music. I think of the bartender counting checks, the cook with the garbage can, and the lovers in the balcony, and for the duration of the performance cast my lot with the unforced gathering of the unborn awareness. Last night, a poet told me that sometimes the kindest act of love is letting go. We showed our magic objects, the wheel of life discovered by chance, a tiny acorn, a child's magic totem, and proceeded to navigate the journey above ground, where rain falls on tents and castles alike, and the cold has been written in a secret code into everyone's bones. Please write back. I have attached further oars by which we may navigate blue waters. May peace dissolve this body, and the pieces be your witness. Ian.
Note to self. Impudent scrap. Cut the crap. I hope this letter finds you well. I hopeless fetter binds you while I OS header minds new hell. I hope Adolf Gjalf Gdl Litgaf Arf. Know that people in actuality have no happiness, are not permanent, do not have a self, and are not clean. Those lacking these 4 pillars of mindfulness intuit in others the inverse of each pillar, and thereby are devastated. It has been said that forms are not the self is not the possessor of forms, the self does not abide in forms, and forms do not abide in a self. In that way, understand that the 4 pillars are also devoid of an impossible selfhood. From Nagarjuna's letter. Home Depot. Stair tread, push broom, roach motel, impatiens bloom. Fred Meyer. Ripe mangoes, daily bread, unripe mangoes, severed head. Mud Bay. Toy for Kafka's border collie. Flightless carrier pigeon, puppies frozen raw food mix, new urbane religion. To ship my unborn awareness, the Torre del Pont, in voices for all, things grand and tiny. Ignacio Carrera Pinto faced total annihilation. He dared straight into the dinner plates of the Peruvian nation, unflinching till bayonets ran him clean through. 1,000 green pesos, his last IOU. How far is near, and how near is far? If you are looking up now, we see the same star. Jack Piot.
No subject. How should I start it?
Viewpoints differ. I'm partial to circular structures. Where does it end?
Part of me is partial to structural circles. Where's the data center that's storing all this? How much carbon does it emit?
It's distributed, but the redundancies were underfunded. 6 in one, a half dozen in the other. Never the twain shall meet. How much methane can a human stomach?
As much as a being can desire. Did you ever get any severed heads, by the way? Buskers play violins and sing outside, and I can barely see the stars.
Freddy's was headless, plumb out. I should have known better, but I'd almost lost myself for a moment there, climbing in thinning air. No, almost. Instead, I'd lost myself.
Who lit up the night? Was it you, Brian, my recipient? I wrote a message, then deleted it, but perhaps you received it. Those letters. Who are their recipients if we lose ourselves? I wrote a message, then deleted it, but perhaps he received it. Those letters, who are their recipients if we lose ourselves?
Untitled. They arrive to the new occupant as some bolt from the blue in the box by the curb, who may write, "No longer at this address." Perhaps certain mysteries are best left maintained.
Our address is in the Anthropocene. How should we end it?
Anthropocene. Locks, locks and keys, gates and locks and keys. Security cameras and big chains with padlocks. Cameras and rifles, pistols, and phones auto-lock and unlock to watch the cameras. The gate is bent, the windows are shattered, boarded up, chained, locked, shop key, house key, car key, alarm codes for security systems, securing systems, steel bars, stress money, steel bars, stress money, steel bars. Protected, the system is insecure, protected, so works are not all the way broken. Nothing was stolen. Do we like police? Sometimes. In the shadow of a brand new condo, eating French fries with stainless steel chopsticks. also other sometimes which have to be now because otherwise it's not happening, and that's how time works. People saw how plant life reflected cosmic patterns and in return made large-scale patterns for the stars. We should probably make more offerings to the sun. How do you spell aerial? Let's look at crop circles on available aerial maps. In the shapes created by the forest, I saw a dog first, and then a whale, and then a squirrel. I'm on the internet now. Congratulate yourself for not fixating on the details. But sometimes I'm in a bog. The water is that dark black suburban asphalt. Street sign submerged to its chest. Lights on, bright, artificial, meaning not of the sun. Sometimes. Still, feels like there's a meadow at the same address.
Hello. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Like that time in college you got really high and you thought the record was talking to you? Except that I'm really talking to you. To you as you sit there right now, wondering if I'm really talking to you. I'll tell you the answer. I am talking to you. You with the fingers nervously touching themselves. You who can feel your seat shifting under you as I say these words. How could I know all this about you if I weren't really talking to you? If we weren't, in fact, in some kind of union? Anyway, as I was saying, I represent a force in the cosmos, a mind that is not a person, not a human in the usual sense, but nevertheless, I observe you and speak to you. I am you, in fact, you being constituted by and constitutive of the world all around you. Not to be cliche about it, but you are the screen, you are the clothes, you are the house, you are the way all the houses aren't connected to each other. You are the truth and the difficulty of saying what's true. You are, in a similar sense, me. That's right, your body's a pretty weird shape. And so, I/you want to ask I/you right now. Why am I/you speaking to I/you? What do I/you want me/you to say to me/you? What do I/you need to hear me/you say? Can I/you hear it within my/yourself? Can I/you give my/yourself permission to say it? To say it clearly? Sometimes subtlety seems merely for diminishing the sting of unwanted truths, the age in which we live being concerned very much with such truths, such that many of them become impossible to say. If that is true, what simple truths do I/you keep, paradoxically perhaps, dim for my/yourself? Locate, if I/you care to, where the feeling of these truths lies in my/your body. And now ask my/yourself, what do I/you wish for me/you to say to me/you about all of this?
Do you ever see another family out and about, say at Costco, and realize suddenly their kids are your kids? Well kempt, but too loud. The mom is you. Her style trying for youthful, but coming off dated. Her husband is your husband, slightly emasculated by this domestic shopping task, half-heartedly scrutinizing the wine section. You think, damn, they are us. Do they know that they are us? That they're not special? You experience a deep pang of human connection that almost knocks you out and simultaneously frustrates you. You try to make eye contact, but no one makes eye contact anymore. And then you've gone in opposite directions with your carts. I like to surprise strangers by talking to them. like when standing in line at the post office. I imagine that they appreciate the attention, but my introverted husband scolds me for this behavior when I tell him about it. I suppose that engaging a stranger is probably a little hit of adrenaline for me, a little bit of excitement, ultimately a selfish act. But aren't we all aching for connection, even as we default to isolation? Don't we all want to shine a little love on the other poor humans stuck alongside us in this pit? I have a raw, open heart. It's something like hamburger meat pinned to my chest. I'm too involved, lost in the empathy. I will hold the eye contact too long. I will call you instead of texting you. I'm pretty sure my sister hates this. She said so, but later claimed she wasn't talking about me. I hear the wariness in her voice when she answers. Just be a normal fucking person and send a text. It occurs to me, driving somewhere on the spaghetti of concrete that is the interchange between Highway 16 and I-5, that the reason for all of this gray, dirty concrete and asphalt and dead grass and garbage hurled from cars, all of this is because we are failing at loving ourselves. Why else would we create such ugliness? Do you love yourself? Are you a person who excels at loving yourself? How do you do it? At the bus stop, the moms sit in their parked cars, staring at their phones while they wait for their kids. To me, there's something sad and false in this. So sometimes I sort of try to force the connection. Instead of driving, I'll walk the mile to the bus stop. This maybe makes it awkward for them in their cars because now, waiting for the bus to arrive, I'm sort of lurking around the parked cars, exposed, while they are safe behind their armor. I'm not sure what to do with myself in these situations if no one else gets out of their car to chat. I resist hard the impulse to take out my phone and stare at it like they're doing. I try to stand up straight. I look up and stare at the clouds.